Have you ever heard of the man who gave his life so that 500 Marines could live? A man who didn't join the military to fight, but to save lives. Yet on the blood-soaked beaches of Guadalcanal, he'd make a decision so brave it would echo through history. This is the story of Douglas Munro, the only U.S. Coast Guardsman ever awarded the Medal of Honor. Welcome back, everyone. Today, you'll hear how one man's courage under impossible fire turned the tide of battle and saved hundreds from certain death. Douglas Munro wasn't born into war. He was born in Vancouver, Canada in 1919 to an American father and an English mother. From a young age, he was drawn to rhythm, mastering the trumpet, the harmonica, the drums. Music was his passion, but service was in his blood. After high school, he joined the Sons of the American Legion Drum and Bugle Corps, marching with pride. And when war clouds gathered in 1939, he told his sister his dream wasn't to fight, it was to save lives. So he joined the U.S. Coast Guard. During training at Port Angels, Washington, Munro met Ray Evans, the man who would become his best friend and brother-in-arms. The two were inseparable. Shipmates called them the Gold Dust Twins. They trained together, served together, and volunteered for the most dangerous assignments, never backing down. By 1941, Munro and Evans were aboard the USS Hunter Liggett, sailing toward the Pacific. Their mission: support the U.S. Marines in the brutal island-hopping campaign against Japan. When the invasion of Guadalcanal began, Munro trained to pilot landing craft, the small boats that carried Marines straight into hell. He also trained as a signalman, responsible for communication between ships and men under fire. It was dangerous, chaotic work, but Munro excelled at it. On September 20, 1942, a Navy aircraft went down near Savo Island. Without hesitation, Munro volunteered to lead a rescue mission. His small craft came under intense Japanese fire, but he maneuvered skillfully, protecting his crew. The downed airmen were saved. It was a preview of the courage that would soon define him forever. A week later, on September 27th, Munro led a fleet of landing craft carrying Marines deep into enemy territory. The landing went as planned, but soon, Japanese reinforcements counterattacked, surrounding the Marines and cutting off their escape. Pinned down, outnumbered, and low on ammunition, the Marines spelled a single word on a hillside using their undershirts: "Help." A Navy pilot spotted the message and radioed it in. Someone had to go back and bring those men home. When asked who would lead the rescue, Munro didn't hesitate. He looked his commander in the eye and said, "Hell yes, I'll go." Munro took command of 10 landing craft. He knew they'd be sailing straight into a wall of Japanese machine guns, but there was no turning back. As the boats entered the bay, the enemy opened fire from every direction. Tracer rounds lit up the water. Still, Munro pressed forward, laying down cover fire with his boat's machine gun so the Marines could board the rescue craft. Then, seeing one boat stranded on the beach, he made a split-second decision. He turned his craft sideways, placing himself directly between the Japanese guns and the trapped Marines. His boat was ripped apart by gunfire, but his men held the line. Evans shouted a warning. A Japanese gun crew had taken aim, but before Munro could react, a bullet struck him in the head. As he lay dying, he asked just one question: did they all get off? When Evans nodded yes, Munro smiled and was gone. Because of Douglas Munro's courage, 500 Marines made it off that beach alive. Those same Marines would go on to win the Battle of Guadalcanal, a turning point in the Pacific War. President Franklin D. Roosevelt later awarded Douglas Munro the Medal of Honor, the only one ever given to a Coast Guardsman. His mother, Edith Munro, accepted the medal and then enlisted herself in the Coast Guard, asking for no special treatment. She became the first female staff officer in Coast Guard history. Today, Douglas Munro's name stands on the Wall of Heroes at the National Museum of the Marine Corps, the only non-Marine ever honored there. His final words still echo through time, a simple question that defines true heroism. Did they all get off? If you found this story inspiring, make sure to follow for more real-life heroism. And remember, courage isn't the absence of fear, it's choosing to act despite it.